Okay, my name is Min Vu and I run the SRS help desk, and I'm here to just go over some of the basics in Advisor, some of the new things, and we're just going to get straight to business. So if you're responsible for Advisor within SRS, you're going to need district manager privileges. You'll go to reports and select the advisor year. You'll select your district from the drop-down menu and click submit. Once you do that, a whole list of students at your district will appear. And then when you click on their name, it will expand and show something that looks like this. I've blurred out all identifying information, and this is what gets reported to Advisor. And I'm updating and changing my language a little bit just because you use Advisor so many times, things get jumbled up really easily. But within development, we call this an EdFi record, and it just contains all of these data elements for students in special education, which then gets reported to Advisor. And you see right here, this is the publishing status. And previously, before we began publishing everything, it was W for waiting. But we did begin to publish to Advisor yesterday around 2:30, and now everybody has published their SPED data to Advisor if they were able to. So these W's will either resolve to an S for success or an E for error. And most errors, if there actually is something within the data, the error code will tell you exactly what's wrong and what you can do to fix it within SRS. And in this case, it's telling us that the begin date overlaps with the record. So when you click on the student's name to expand, it's going to show two records right here. And when we examine the contents, these are exact duplicates. So the one that's never actually published can be removed. But as we can see, this record on top did successfully publish. So you could ignore this if you want, but if you don't want the student's name to be read, you can remove that record. Occasionally, things won't be able to publish to Advisor because of data interactions with your student information system. So things to look out for when you see a 403 error like here is you'll want to check your student information system first. So I'm going to go back to the previous slide. So whenever you see that 403 error within SRS, you'll want to check the demographic information of your student first to make sure that it is there and completed. And then if they need to be enrolled in a special program for special education or early childhood, do so. And then make sure that the state ID number for the student in your student information system matches what you have on SRS. So this is what it will look like. This is a screenshot from one district, and it looks like every student within this district was triggering the 403 error. So there's something probably wrong with the settings within whatever student information system they're using that will need to be tweaked before these students' special ed records can actually publish to Advisor. So a lot of these things happen automatically, and this is what prompts the SRS system to generate an EdFi record. As long as the student has their state ID entered, has a finalized MDT on file, and then a finalized special ed record, whether it's an IEP, an IFSP, or a data card. Once you have these three things, SRS will automatically generate an EdFi record for the students. And if you happen to do things a little bit out of order, you can always prompt the system to check if an EdFi record has been created for that student. And if it hasn't, it will do so. And you just do that by going into the student's profile page and clicking the save button. And if all else fails, there is manual creation of EdFi records, and we'll go over that next. When you're in the Advisor interface, there's this button here that doesn't really look too much like a button, but once you click it, it will expand and show you these input fields where you can enter the student state ID. And then when you click on create form, you'll see something that looks like this. And SRS will populate the last known data elements for whatever given field when you do this. But then the things that it doesn't know will be empty, and you'll have to fill that in and update whatever data element as needed. And this is what the data override looks like as well. So creating an EdFi record manually and overriding data, you'll see a screen that looks like this, and you'll be able to change anything as needed. So I wanted to talk about the SPED 99 exit reason. As I said earlier, a lot of the things for Advisor are automated. So when an IEP gets finalized, that is one thing that prompts SRS to create a new EdFi record. And if the student was in special education last year, when you go into Advisor, you're going to see an initial record with the begin date of July 1st of the given school year. And this is actually last year's data because it was harder to find a situation that I could illustrate for you within this school year, just because data did not start publishing until yesterday. So this student was in special education the year before, and then once their IEP expired, they either need to exit special education or a new IEP needs to be held for that student. And so this new IEP came into effect on January 22nd of this year. So once they finalized that IEP, SRS created a new EdFi record that we see right here. And then it closes out the previous record with an exit date that's 1 day before the begin date of the new record. And then it enters SPED 99 as the exit reason. And it's not a real exit reason. It just indicates to us in Advisor that the student had an update in their SPED records. So anytime an IEP gets finalized and the student has a history in special education, we're going to see at least 2 EdFi records for students with a history, continuing history in special education. So this picture illustrates which data elements come from which special education records. So the begin date, the SPED setting, the Part B, Part C participation, and then the SPED services all come from the IEP or the IFSP. And then the disability only comes from the MDT. And then if the student has exited from special education, their exit date and exit reason would come from their profile page, in addition to their placement type and whether they take alternate assessment. And if you ever need to reference any of this within each EdFi record, there should be these links that will take you to the source documents that this data is coming from. And the next order of business is part of these workdays and part of the data collections is follow-ups for transfer out students. And a lot of school districts won't know if students have transferred out of their districts until the new school year starts. And so they don't really do the data entry for their exits from the district until the next school year starts. This isn't the best example to use, but the point I wanted to illustrate is that if the student transfers out of your district, you might not have access to their actual SRS account anymore. But if they were actually receiving services within your district, they should have at least an EdFi record within your within the advisor system at your district. And you know that the student has transferred out of your district and you don't have access to it anymore when you see not available where the SRS ID should be. And then when you see that, these SRS tools disappear as well because you don't have access to that student anymore. You can't reference their SPED records because it belongs to a different district now. But you can still override the data, and if you have the state ID for the student on file, you can also manually create EdFi records to report their transfer out of the district. So in this case, let's say that the student actually did transfer out of the district on the last day of school. Let's say it was May 20th, but the school doesn't know this until this new school year started on August 13th, let's say. We want to go back into the advisor data of last year and then find that open record that doesn't have the exit date and exit reason, overwrite the data, and just enter that exit date of the last day of school with an exit reason of transferring out of the district. Okay, and then the very last thing I wanted to talk about is how non-public students are reported to advisor. If the student is attending a non-public school or is getting homeschooled, their special education setting needs to be 14, and that's for private school or exempt homeschool. And then if that's what their special education setting is, their placement type needs to be 2, 3, or 4. And those are just indicators of their parental placement in a non-public school and what kind of special education program they are participating in. In most cases, it's going to be 3, meaning that the parents put them in a non-public school and that they are receiving SPED services from the school district on an IEP. Be very wary about the special education setting just because this has been improperly reported for some time now, and we are going to be changing how that gets reported and where it comes from for our follow-up collection at the end of the school year. And I just want to make sure that this gets reported correctly, so just pay special attention to any of your homeschoolers or non-public school students to make sure that the special education setting actually reflects where they're actually receiving most of their general education programs. And it was Denise presenting. She talked about the new special education exit reason. The actual code within advisor for that is SPED 18. And that is now available on SRS. So any students that exit special education now, if they are Part B, you should see a new exit reason about parents or guardians revoking consent for special education services. And this last bit goes back to the special education setting. Once we're done at the end of the deadline, October 31st, I'm hoping the special education setting will be correct for all students within advisor. And we will just take whatever that is and make that a new data element on the student's profile page. And then that's where the special education setting is going to come from. And the only time you'll want to change that in the future is when that student setting changes from something like preschool to public school, or if they transfer from public school to a non-public school. Other than that, that's all I've got for you. If you need my help, you can contact me at srshelp@esucc.org. And of course, I'll have my own SRS breakout room where we can work together on any and all SPED errors with an advisor.
Thanks, Min. So I guess it is now work time until noon when we take a lunch break. So I know Sherry is here from Nebraska Power School, and then we have Synergy staff here as well to help with that. So are we wanting to break out?
Yeah. There are 3 questions in the spreadsheet. I don't know if we want to deal with those in the big group.
We can. You can, I think you can stop recording now, Craig.
I will do
I see the little recording